Good morning. Hello, dear children. So, how you all are doing? So, I welcome you to another class of science, class 7. So, before we move on, first, we all are just sorry that because of some technical fault, last class was not able to get completed because there are some technical problems were there. But no problems. Today in this class, I'll pick up the topic from the beginning itself. Right? So whatever I have discussed, because in last class I just took the topic only for up to, that is 10 to 15 minutes. So all those topics I just repeat, no problem. But before that, I just want to tell you that it has been observed that with respect to the submission of your work, your assignments in Google Classroom, there are many children who are not taking this work seriously. They are not submitting the assignments on time, and some are there who are not submitting at all. So, children, let me remind you that these worksheets, these assignments are the basis on which your assessment will be done for this particular session. So you have to take it seriously. Another, there are certain students what they are doing, that if I have given 3 to 4 worksheets to be submitted, they are solving only one or two, not all of them. So please make it clear that I am making entry against each and every student in our diary, in our records, and accordingly only you will be allotted marks. Okay, and one more thing, some children what they're doing, they're simply taking the printout of the worksheet, solving on them, and then they are scanning and uploading the solution form. So if it is, say for example, multiple choice question or other objective questions, okay, it can be accepted once in a while. But for subjective questions also, these children are simply writing in a minimized form in that question paper, in that printout form only. So that clearly shows that you are simply doing a kind of formality, right? So I have noticed all these points. So from next time, please take care. And then on the same side, there are certain students who are doing an excellent work. Their work is very neat and clean. Answers are up to the mark. And yes, these are the same children again, those who are regularly attending the classes also. Because students, once you are regular in the classes, then you will be able to write, you will be able to solve your assignments properly. Okay, so next time take all these points in your consideration before you submit your work to me. And also when you are doing the scanning, some of the scans which you people are uploading, these are too bright that nothing is visible to us at the time of evaluation. So please, when you are taking the scan before uploading, have a look on them whether the clarity is there or not. Right? Unless your job will be doubled, we simply send them back to you with the note, submit again. Right? So these points you have to keep in your mind next time while submitting your work, and please submit your work on time. Okay. So last class we picked up the topic that is neutralization process. Okay. And we have already started about what is neutralization. So there I discussed with you that neutralization means that is acids and base react together to form salt and water. So neutralization process means acids and bases. When they are mixed together, then this process is known as neutralization process. Basically, it is a kind of chemical reaction in which acid and base they react together, and upon reaction they form salt and water. Means the two new substances which are obtained, that are salt and water. And along with salt and water, heat is also released. Heat is also released. And this I told in the last class itself that since during neutralization reactions, heat energy is released. So we say that these processes are exothermic by nature. Yes, neutralization reactions are exothermic by nature. Exo means outside and thermic means heat. So during these reactions, during utilization process, heat energy is given out. That's why we call that as exothermic process. So I told you also that if in a beaker you mix both acid and base, and after a while you touch the beaker from outside, then you will find that the beaker has become quite warm to touch. Why? Because neutralization reaction has taken place and heat is released. So it is exothermic by nature, right? Another one. Now question is, that is when acid and bases are reacting together, when they react with each other, then what happens, that salt and water is formed. How does it form? So you have to remember, you learn in higher classes that acids, they have a tendency of releasing H plus ions, which we call as hydrogen ions, in their aqueous solutions, right? In fact, when you go to higher classes, you will learn the definition for acids as that these are those chemical substances which release hydrogen ions in their aqueous solution. Aqueous solution means in presence of water. When you dissolve acids in water, then what happens? They release H plus ions. And why they release H plus ions? Because all acids, they contain hydrogen in them. आप आगे जाके हायर क्लासेस में पढ़ेंगे कि जितने भी एसिड्स होते हैं उन सारे एसिड्स में हाइड्रोजन प्रेजेंट होता है. And this hydrogen, they release in the form of H plus ions, that is hydrogen ions. Similarly, all bases. Now we know what are bases. These are those substances which are bitter to taste and soapy to touch. So what happens? All bases, they release OH minus ions, which we call as हाइड्रोक्साइड आयंस इन प्रेजेंस ऑफ वाटर. तो जितने भी बेसिस हैं वो सारे बेसिस वाटर की प्रेजेंस में OH माइनस मींस हाइड्रोक्साइड आयंस को रिलीज करते हैं. ओके, सो व्हाट हैपेंस ड्यूरिंग न्यूट्रलाइजेशन प्रोसेस? व्हेन यू मिक्स एसिड एंड बेस टुगेदर, देन व्हाट हैपेंस? H plus ions released from an acid and OH minus ion released from a base, they combine together and they form water, H2O. Yes, H plus OH minus gives H2O. And we know that when acid and base react together, they form salt and water, right? So that is how neutralization process takes place. So just for a competitive knowledge, I told you that acids, they release H plus ions in their aqueous solution, and bases, they release OH minus in their aqueous solutions. And that is how during this particular process heat energy is also given out, right? So in exam, generally we get a question from this topic: explain the process of neutralization with the help of an example. So in explanation, you have to write down the definition, you have to write down an example also, right? And as I told you in last class, that during this particular process of neutralization, the salt which is formed, that salt, it can be acidic, it can be basic, and it can be neutral. So I am not saying that since salts are formed during the process of neutralization, so they need to be neutral always. No. Salts can be neutral, acidic or basic also. For example, the salt, common salt which we eat in our food, common salt I am talking about, which we obtain from the sea water, that common salt is an example of neutral salt. वो salt common example है neutral salt का, right? So similarly we have other salts also which are acidic and basic also. Okay, so do remember, salts are not always neutral, they can be acidic as well as basic, right? Now as an example, one reaction between hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide. Now hydrochloric acid and sodium hydroxide, they both are strong by nature. They both are strong by nature. Means hydrochloric acid is also a strong acid and sodium hydroxide is also a strong base. So what happens when you mix these two chemical substances together, the neutralization process is complete and we obtain the salt called sodium chloride. The name was sodium chloride. That's the chemical name. Common name is common salt or table salt we also call it, right? And water is there and then comes the heat released. Okay? So this particular example equation is given in your NCERT book also. So do remember, whenever there is a question in exam, explain the process of neutralization. You have to write at least one example to show how neutralization process takes place. So acid plus base gives salt and water along with heat. And already twice or thrice we have received a question on this topic for 2 to 3 marks. What is neutralization process? Sometimes they ask a question in indirect form that explain what will happen if we mix acid and base together. Then you have to explain that neutralization process will take place, right? So this is what neutralization is. Now this neutralization process, it plays very important, very crucial role in our daily lives. Yes, in our daily lives we are using this neutralization process. So let's see where we are also we make use of this neutralization process, right? So here we can simply write that is application of neutralization in daily life. And yes, it is quite an important topic for examination. बहुत important topic है, right? So now we will discuss those examples from daily life where we are using neutralization in our daily life, right? So first one is that is during the condition called indigestion. During the condition called indigestion. Now indigestion it generally results due to the excessive secretion of HCl in our stomach. Yes, you have studied in chapter number 2 that inside the stomach hydrochloric acid is secreted and this acid plays a vital role in the digestion of the food. Now what happens is sometimes under certain situations there occurs excessive secretion. Excessive means zarurat se zyada. So excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid takes place inside our stomach, right? And because of that, we feel or we get a feeling of burning in stomach. Feeling of burning. For example, for a very long period of time, you are empty stomach, you are not consuming anything. Okay, so that can also lead to excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid because acid is not getting anything to digest upon. You are consuming too much of fried and spicy food items. So that can also lead to excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid. और इसी प्रॉब्लम को हम कॉमन लैंग्वेज में डिस्क्राइब करते हैं एसिडिटी. What we say that I am facing the problem of acidity. Acidity means that particular situation where we get the sensation of burning inside our stomach. जब हमें ऐसा लगता है कि हमारा जो पेट है अंदर से जल रहा है, we call it as acidity or indigestion. Okay, so how does it happen? You learned in chapter 2 that So this is esophagus and this is stomach, right? About this you learned. Now stomach, it has got a lining of, that is known as mucus. We discussed in chapter 2 that inside the stomach, digestive juices, hydrochloric acid and mucus, these three secretions are present inside the stomach which help in the digestion of the food. And there you have learned that the function of mucus is to protect the inner lining of the stomach from the action of HCl. जो सेल्स स्टमक में हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड सीक्रेट करती है वही म्यूकस भी सीक्रेट करती है। म्यूकस का फंक्शन क्या है? वो स्टमक की इनर लाइनिंग को हाइड्रोक्लोरिक एसिड से बचाता है, राइट? नाउ व्हाट हैपेंस ड्यूरिंग द सिचुएशन ऑफ indigestion when there is excessive secretion of hydrochloric acid is taking place in our stomach, then what happens? This hydrochloric acid gradually burns the mucus. So what happens? This mucus layer is burned and finally hydrochloric acid reaches to the layer of the stomach. तो इंडाइजेशन में स्टमक में जरूरत से ज्यादा एसिड प्रेजेंट है तो क्या करता है? म्यूकस की बैरियर लेयर को क्रॉस करके स्टमक के जो बेयर टिश्यूज हैं वहां तक पहुंच जाता है, राइट? एंड आफ्टर दैट व्हाट हैपेंस? That we start getting the sensation of as if something is burning inside our stomach. So that is how acidity takes place, right? Now this acidity can be cured by using the substances called antacids. It can be cured by using the substances called antacids, and do remember antacids especially are those substances which are weak bases, and because of that we can consume them. Now the word antacids, anta means against, and acids we know the substances which are so-to-taste means acids. So antacids are those substances which work against the action of an acid. So what happens? When we are having the problem of acidity or indigestion, we take these antacids. Now the commonly used antacids which we take in day-to-day life, say for example, milk of magnesia, that is magnesium hydroxide. This particular example you have to remember because it is given as this in your NCERT. Many more examples are also there for antacids. So first which you have to remember, that is milk of magnesia, MgOH twice, magnesium hydroxide. तो याद रखेंगे milk of magnesia common name है, chemical name है magnesium hydroxide, right? Another one, we have sodium hydrogen carbonate. We may also take aluminium hydroxide. We also take, that is, one more is also, that is in this magnesium carbonate. So all these are examples of antacids. All these are examples of antacids, and do remember that antacids always need to be a weak base. They need to be a weak base. Antacids का जो chemical nature है वो हमेशा याद रखेंगे, ये weak bases होते हैं, and that's why when we consume them, they don't harm, but they neutralize the excessive acid. So what happens when you take antacids? They neutralize excessive acid, and as a result we get relief from the acidity. So sometime in exam we get a question that explain how antacids work. Or simply we get a question, what are antacids? Explain how do they work. So antacids are those substances which work against the action of acids, and essentially they need to be weak bases. And how do they work? They are consumed during the problem of indigestion or acidity situation. And what they do? They neutralize the excessive acid which is present in our stomach, that is hydrochloric acid. And after that, we get relief from that particular problem of indigestion. So, to overcome the problem of indigestion, what we are doing? We are using the process of neutralization. We are taking antacids which are neutralizing the extra amount of acid which is secreted inside our stomach. So that is the first example where we are using neutralization process in our daily life. Now next one is, second application is, that is soil treatment. Next one is soil treatment. Now first question comes that what do we mean by the word or the definition, that is soil treatment. And the soil treatment means it is the process in which the acidic or basic soils are turned to neutral. Yes. So what happens? There are certain soils. Sometimes the soil is highly acidic or it is highly alkaline, right? And we know that farmers, they cultivate their crops in the soil. Every plant need, most of the plants, they need soil for their growth and development. And it has been practically proved that most of the plants, they have a tendency of growing in a healthy way in neutral soils. जो most of the plants, जो maximum plants हैं, वो एक neutral soil में अच्छे से grow कर सकते हैं. So what happens if the soil has become acidic or basic? Then what happens? That affects the growth of the plant, right? Now, how does the soil become acidic? It becomes acidic by the excessive use of the substances or chemicals called fertilizers. Most of the farmers, they make use of fertilizers because they give fast results and they are good for the vegetative growth of the plant. But if we use them in excessive quantity, then what happens? Same fertilizers, they make the soil acidic in nature. They make it acidic. तो अगर हमने जरूरत से ज्यादा बहुत लंबे समय तक हमारी सॉइल में बहुत सारा फर्टिलाइजर लगाया है, तो धीरे धीरे जो सॉइल न्यूट्रल थी हमारी फील्ड की, वो कैसी हो जाएगी? एसिडिक हो जाएगी, राइट? अनदर वन इज दैट the soil at certain places it is very alkaline, बहुत ही ज़्यादा basic होती है, and it is because in these soils the concentration of calcium carbonate is high. Generally जो soils alkaline होती हैं उनमें calcium carbonate का concentration high होता है, and this calcium carbonate they are getting from the parent rock naturally. So in the next chapter, we would be learning about soil, how does it form and all that. So there we would be learning that soil is formed by the process of weathering. And weathering is the disintegration of the parent rock. तो जिन parent rocks में natural basis पे calcium carbonate का content high होता है, तो उन parent rocks से जो soil बनती है, वो naturally बहुत ही ज़्यादा alkaline और वैसे it would be very basic, extremely basic. And again, it is not neutral. So what happens in these two kind of soils, that is acidic and basic soils, in both of them, what happens? That is, the plants, they fail to grow in healthy manner. Actually, what happens? If the soil is excessively acidic or basic, in both the situations, the plants are not able to absorb essential nutrients from the soil. अगर किसी पर्टिकुलर फील्ड की जो सॉइल है वो बहुत ही ज़्यादा एसिडिक है या बेसिक है, तो सॉइल में जो हम प्लांट्स कल्टीवेट करते हैं, जो रूट्स है प्लांट की, वो सॉइल से एसेंशियल न्यूट्रिएंट्स को प्रॉपर वे में एब्जॉर्ब नहीं कर पाते हैं. दैट इन टर्न अफेक्ट द ग्रोथ ऑफ द प्लांट, राइट? Now what happens? So for the treatment of these kind of soils, we use certain kind of substances. So if the soil is acidic, we treat it with quicklime, that is calcium oxide, CaO, that is calcium oxide, that is quicklime. Or if quicklime is not there, then we can also make use of, that is slate lime, and that is CaOH whole twice, CaOH whole twice, right? So generally for treating acidic soil, so अगर soil आपकी फील्ड की बहुत ही ज़्यादा acidic हो गई है, हमें उसको न्यूट्रल करना है, तो हम क्या करते हैं, सॉइल में क्विकलाइम या फिर स्लेट लाइम को मिक्स कर देते हैं. So what happens? This quicklime and slate lime, they both are basic by nature. They both have a basic nature. So what happens? These two substances, they together, they neutralize the extra acids which are present in the soil, and they make the soil neutral, right? Similarly, if the soil is too basic, so for basic soil, what we do, we add organic waste, because this organic waste will release organic acids in the soil. Yes, it will release organic acids. So for example, compost है, manure है, तो हम इन ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट को सॉइल में डंप कर देते हैं, और जब इन ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट का और डिसइंटीग्रेशन होता है डिकम्पोजिशन प्रोसेस के थ्रू, तो ऑर्गेनिक एसिड्स रिलीज होते हैं, और ये एसिड्स क्या करेंगे, जो भी एक्स्ट्रा बेसिक सब्सटेंस है सॉइल में उसको धीरे धीरे न्यूट्रलाइज करते हैं. बिकॉज ऑफ दैट द सॉइल ग्रेजुअली बिकम्स न्यूट्रल, द सॉइल ग्रेजुअली बिकम्स न्यूट्रल, राइट? सो दिस इज हाउ soil treatment is done. So from this topic, generally you get the question first, that is, what do you mean by soil treatment? What is soil treatment? So it is a process in which the soils which are acidic or basic, they are made neutral. How? By making them to react with opposite substances. अगर soil acidic है तो basic substance से react कराएंगे, और अगर soil basic है तो acidic substance हम उसमें mix करेंगे, so that it will become neutral, right? Second question which they ask, that is on the basis of just application. Question will be asked directly, that is, why some farmers they add quicklime or slate lime to their fields. जो सीधे आपसे क्वेश्चन पूछा जाए तो वैसे पूछा जाता है कि कुछ फार्मर्स जो हैं वो अपनी सॉइल में, अपनी फील्ड की सॉइल पे क्विकलाइम और स्लेट लाइम क्यों ऐड करते हैं. सो देयर यू हैव टू, okay, so one question is from the login ID Dilip Kumar, that if we add excessive use of manures, does it change into acidic, basic or neutral? Actually, excessive use of manure does not harm the soil in any way, because it's a point that when you are going to add manure to the soil, its decomposition release organic acid, okay, but manures on the same side, they are also rich with that is organic waste, which we call it as humus, organic material, and that humus, it keeps the fertility of the soil intact. I hope you got your answer कि अगर आप एक्सेसिव मैन्योर ऐड करेंगे सॉइल में तो वो सॉइल को इनफर्टाइल नहीं बनाएगा, क्योंकि ठीक है ऑर्गेनिक वेस्ट को रिलीज करेगा, ऑर्गेनिक एसिड्स रिलीज करेगा, लेकिन मैन्योर एसिड्स के साथ साथ ह्यूमस भी सप्लाई करते हैं सॉइल को, एंड दैट मेंटेन्स द फर्टिलिटी ऑफ द सॉइल, राइट? So from here, this particular, do remember the question, that is, why do farmers they add slate lime or why they add a quick lime to their fields? This is very commonly asked question from this particular topic, right? So that is the second way where we are using neutralization process in our daily life, right? Now the third one is, so now the next one is, that is ant bite. So the next one is ant bite. Yes, ant bite means when ant sting. That is known as ant bite. जब एक चींटी हमें काटती है तो हम उसको क्या कहते हैं? ant bite. Okay. So during the treatment of this ant bite, we also use neutralization process. So what happens when ant bite? We feel irritation and pain. The particular place in our body where an ant bite us, we feel irritation and pain. हमें बहुत तेज खुजली होती है और दर्द भी होता है. That are the effect of ant bite, right? And for a particular period of time, that place become red and swollen also. थोड़े टाइम पीरियड के लिए उस पर्टिकुलर प्लेस पर थोड़ी सी स्वेलिंग आ जाती है और जो पर्टिकुलर लोकेटेड एरिया है वो आपका रेड भी हो जाता है, राइट? सो दैट आर द इफेक्ट ऑफ ant bite. So ant bite means that is, so that is we get pain, swelling and irritation. So once it was a question in your examination, what is ant bite and what is its effect? So when an ant stings us, we call it as ant bite, and its effect is, that is pain, swelling, irritation, and you can also add that is reddening of that particular area, right? Now what happens when ant bite? It injects formic acid, which is also known as methanoic acid, and formula is HCOOH. Yes. So in the sting of ant, an organic acid is present, and that acid is formic acid, which is also known as methanoic acid, and formula goes HCOOH. That is for methanoic acid, right? So when this acid is injected inside our body, because of the effect of that acid, we get pain, swelling and irritation. जब एक चींटी हमें काटती है वो अपने स्टिंग के थ्रू हमारी बॉडी में मिथेनोइक एसिड को रिलीज करती है, और उस एसिड की इफेक्ट की वजह से हमें पेन, स्वेलिंग और इरिटेशन होता है पर्टिकुलर एरिया में, राइट? Now to reduce the effect of ant bite, we again make use of that is some basic substances, and generally we make use of calamine solution. So what is calamine solution? The chemical compound called zinc carbonate, ZnCO3. Its chemical name is zinc carbonate. So zinc carbonate commonly is known as calamine solution. It is known as calamine solution, right? So if a particular place ant has sting us, then what do? We take a small quantity of calamine solution and we rub it on the affected area. Then what happens? The base which is present in this calamine, that is zinc carbonate, what it do? It will neutralize. It will neutralize the acid. And because of that, we get relief from the ant bite. We get relief from the ant bite. So here I just can see that is Bhagyaraj. Okay, you want to know that ENO contain which type of antacid? Okay, ENO basically contains sodium hydrogen carbonate. That is commonly known as sodium bicarbonate. तो इनो में जो मैक्सिमम क्वांटिटी है वो है सोडियम हाइड्रोजन कार्बोनेट की, दैट इटसेल्फ अ वीक बेस एंड यस वेरी कॉमनली यूज्ड एंटासिड आल्सो, राइट? ओके, Then from the login of Kartik is saying, many people say that honeybee sting cancer is vanished from body. So regarding this, I can't say much about, but I don't think so that it is particularly correct. Okay. So I hope this regarding ant bite it is clear to you. What is ant bite? What is its effect? And how it can be cured? तो जितने भी एग्जाम्पल्स अभी हम डेली लाइफ से पढ़ रहे हैं न्यूट्रलाइजेशन रिएक्शन की, हर एग्जाम्पल पे अपने एक इंडिविजुअल क्वेश्चंस फ्रेम हो सकते हैं. सो दैट इज अबाउट एंट बाइट, राइट? That is another application of neutralization process in our daily life, right? Now the next one which we can just, that is factory waste. That one is factory waste. Okay. Okay, so Ishani Jain is asking that many times we also use mustard oil when an ant is biting us. So mustard oil also contain antiacid. Actually, it does not contain any antiacid or any weak base, but the oil has got some soothing properties. So what happens when you apply oil to the affected area where ant has bitten us? So that only soothes down the irritation, right? क्योंकि कई प्लेसेस पे हमें क्या लगता है कि जो इरिटेशन है, जो खुजली और ड्राइनेस की वजह से, तो जब हम ऑयल अप्लाई करते हैं तो ड्राइनेस हट जाती है एंड टू सम एक्सटेंट इरिटेशन कैन बी क्योर्ड, बट इट डज नॉट कंटेन एनी काइंड ऑफ बेस और एंटासिड्स, राइट? ओके, सो फैक्ट्री वेस्ट. Now in day to day life we are making use of large variety of products, and these products which we are getting from the factories and industries. But these factories and industries, they use lots of chemical reactions for making their products. जितनी भी इंडस्ट्रीज हैं, फैक्ट्रीज हैं, जो बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट्स से बना के देती है हमें, उन प्रोडक्ट्स को सिंथेसाइज करने के लिए बहुत सारे केमिकल रिएक्शंस को यूज करती है, राइट? So while using these chemical reactions, lot of waste is generated, and these waste, it can be acidic or it can be basic. So most of the industries, the waste which they are generating, in most of the cases the waste is either acidic or it is basic. Now we also know that children, the most easiest way of getting rid of these waste, the industries which they use, is to dump these waste material either in open soil ground, or they simply release the waste in the nearby water bodies. They release it in the nearby water bodies, right? तो फैक्ट्रीज क्या करती हैं, या तो वेस्ट को किसी ओपन लैंडफिल में जाकर डंप कर देती हैं, or what they do, they simply release it in the nearby water body. Now what happens, if the waste is either highly acidic or basic, then what will happen? And it is released in the water bodies. Then so in water bodies, what it will do, it can kill aquatic life. Yes, if these both kind of waste is going to be dumped in the water bodies, then the ill effect of this dumping will be that it may lead to the death of the aquatic life. Okay. So now what is happening, that to save the aquatic life, now government has made it mandatory that every factory waste, every industrial waste should be treated properly with opposite substances to make it neutral. Means if the factory waste is acidic, it will be treated with base, and if it is basic, then it will be treated with, that is, some acidic material. And in both the cases, why we are doing it? To make the waste material neutral by nature, right? So proper treatment should be given, and once the waste has become neutral, then that waste is dumped into the water body, so that it cannot cause any change in the chemical nature of the water, and because of that the aquatic life is not harmed in any way, right? So that is another effect of That is another effect of that is factory waste. So here that is from Karthik is saying, I can see that you're writing the water get dirty and it kill fish and manure. That's right. That's why government has set some rules for the dumping of waste also. But this I told in the reference utilization process कि इस particular places में या commercial scale पर भी हम utilization process को use करते हैं, right? Okay. So let me see if there are any other doubts from you. Okay. Okay, so Bhaskar Kohli is asking that some people said in villages that we should use our saliva for the treatment of ant bite. Okay, same thing is here. The same job is done by the saliva which oil is doing, which I think Ishani has asked the question a moment before. तो जब एंट बाइट होता है और आप उसका अगर सलाइवा अप्लाई करते हैं तो वो सिर्फ पर्टिकुलर एरिया को सूद करता है, जो एसिड प्रेजेंट है उसको वो न्यूट्रलाइज नहीं करेगा, राइट? सो दैट इज जस्ट अ काइंड ऑफ वे टू सूद डाउन द बेसिकली इरिटेशन, राइट? एंड डू रिमेंबर दैट मीथेनोइक एसिड इज आल्सो प्रेजेंट इन द स्टिंग ऑफ हनी बीज, जो मधुमक्खियां होती हैं, राइट? उनके स्टिंग में भी मीथेनोइक एसिड प्रेजेंट होता है. ओके, then okay, so Ananya Dhakar, she's telling it should be rubbed by metal or baking soda. So baking soda is the same which I told you, that is NaCO3. So that is a weak base and that will neutralize methanoic acid. And rubbing with metal can also be done because we learn in higher classes that metal they react with acids to form salt and hydrogen gas. तो अगर कभी ऐसा है कि हमें एंट बाइट हुआ है या हनी बी बाइट हुआ है और हमारे पास प्रॉपर बेसिक सॉल्यूशन नहीं है, तो आप एक मेटल की आयरन की लेकर हम कई बार उससे उसको रगड़ लेते हैं, तो जो मेटल है वो एसिड के साथ रिएक्शन करके और सॉल्ट को फॉर्म करके हाइड्रोजन गैस रिलीज हो जाती है. सो दैट बेसिकली डिकम्पोज द एसिड, सो इट रिड्यूसेस द इफेक्ट. ओके, so Bhagyaraj, I already told you that ENO contains sodium hydrogen carbonate. Okay, so just let me see. So there are any doubts, you can put it in the comment box regarding the 2-3 topics which I discussed with you. So today I discussed, there are many more examples of neutralization reaction that I discuss next for the class. So today whatever I discussed, if there are any doubts regarding to that, you can put it in the comment box. And yes, okay, so Kaustubh Singh is asking if too much honey bee attack on anyone, so the person become unconscious. So why he become unconscious, due to pain or acid? So that is generally because of that is the extra injection of the acid which goes into our body, because they generally enters into the blood vessel. So that is kind. Okay, so I hope you're not having any doubts regarding today's topic. If still you find any doubts after class gets over, then feel free to drop a line to me. So now I would like to end my class here itself. So that's all from my side from this particular class. So we will be continuing this topic in the next class. So till then, stay safe, take care, bye.